Today we're going to talk briefly about proof that guns save lives, specifically a very narrow topic known as that's right, hot burglaries, and the statistics that show that in the United States, hot burglaries, which means people break into your home or office when someone's there, are dramatically lower here in the United States than they are in other countries that don't have gun rights, right to self-defense, prevalence of guns, such as the United Kingdom. Critical fact, just for your arsenal of arguments in support of a right to bear arms, coming up in just one moment. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Boxes Diner, proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and author of many Second Amendment related books, including Disarm: What the Ukraine War Teaches Americans About the Right to Bear Arms. All right, folks, this video is going to be a quick one, but it's an important one. Two critical points are going to come out of this video. The first is the evidence that guns deter crime even when criminals don't know whether or not you have guns is going to be illustrated by the rates of hot burglaries in the United States compared to the United Kingdom. And I want to talk about a famous case in the United Kingdom of Tony Martin, an individual who shot a bad dude, two bad dudes, in fact, that were breaking into his home in the United Kingdom, and yet he still went to prison for it because, let's just say, the United Kingdom is not really into guns for self-defense. But to begin with, let's talk about this notion of hot burglaries. Remember, a burglary is when someone breaks into your home. This is different than a robbery. A robbery is when someone uses violence or the threat of violence to steal your stuff. So if you're out on the street and I threaten to hit you over the head if you don't give me your wallet, that's a robbery. If I shoot you and steal your stuff, that would be, at a minimum, a robbery. You see, a burglary is different than a robbery. A burglary is when I break into usually your home. Now, there's two general types of burglaries, and it's important to understand this because one type of burglary is far more violently dangerous or more physically dangerous potentially. Those burglaries are known as hot burglaries. Again, there's two types of burglaries known to exist for our purposes. Hot burglaries, which is when someone breaks into a home when there's someone in the home. You're at home in the middle of the night and someone breaks into your home. That is an example of a hot burglary. If they break into your home in the middle of the day when you're at work, that is an example of a cold burglary or not a hot burglary. You see the difference? Now, hot burglaries are far more dangerous, and everyone agrees about this for several reasons. First of all, the presence of individuals in the home when someone breaks in gives rise to a dramatic increase of potential for violence, either by the burglar against you because you may spook him, or he may see an opportunity to commit violence that he wasn't otherwise thinking about committing. So the point is that people in the home when a burglary occurs, greater risk for injury, not just to the burglar, but also, of course, to the victim. It goes both ways. And, of course, you have the increase of risk of violence if the police wind up showing up and engage with the burglar or with you, thinking that you might be the burglar. So all the way around, however you want to view it, hot burglaries are considered far more dangerous in all respects than are cold burglaries. Obviously, they're all bad, but hot burglaries are considered far more dangerous. Beyond that, the psychological trauma to the victims of a burglary in the home when they're there is far worse. There's been studies on this. The sudden intrusion by a stranger into your home causes residents and people that were there to be very upset, very nervous. They can't sleep at night. They have anxiety because, their home has been invaded while they were there. Very intimidating and very scary, and a true sense of a violation here. And again, as I referenced earlier, you have these unpredictable results from hot burglaries because, again, someone's showing up and you're there, all sorts of bad things can go down for obvious reasons. Now, the reason why I want you to understand this thing about hot burglaries, because this is a very simple fact that you can use when you're debating gun control and the importance of guns in deterring crime. One needs to look at hot burglary rates, and this is a very good statistic for our side. If you compare the hot burglary rates, which means the number of burglaries that occur in an occupied residence, i.e. hot burglary, with the number of burglaries that occur in a non-occupied residence, i.e. a not hot burglary or a cold burglary. And then you simply compare the rates of hot burglaries in the United States with the rates of burglaries in, let's say, an anti-gun country, similar to ours in many respects, like the United Kingdom. You will see the dramatic difference. Specifically, according to the British Home Office, 59%, that's 59% of the burglaries in the United Kingdom are actually hot burglaries. Did you hear what I just said? The majority, the distinct, significant majority of burglaries in the United Kingdom are actually hot burglaries. Almost 60% of the burglaries in the United Kingdom, 60% of the burglaries in the United Kingdom are hot burglaries, the worst kind of burglaries. Now, we know why that's the case, which is the United Kingdom has basically no guns. You're not allowed to have guns in the United Kingdom. If you are allowed to have guns, they're for hunting, and they have to be locked up in places like your hunting lodge. And even if you have guns, you're not supposed to use guns for self-defense. There's a famous case involving a man named Tony Martin, we'll get to in 2 minutes, out of the United Kingdom, where he shot bad dudes and killed one of them, and he wound up going to jail. We'll get to that in 1 second. So again, hot burglaries rates in the United Kingdom, which hates guns, no rights to self-defense using a gun, well over half of those burglaries are hot burglaries, about 60%, meaning people are in the home, occupants are in the home when the burglary occurs. Now, in the United States, though, it's dramatically below that. According to the United States Department of Justice, it's somewhere on the order of magnitude of like 25 to 28% of burglaries in the United States are hot burglaries, which means that the vast majority of burglaries in the United States occur where no one is in the home. And thus, of course, that's much safer. Now, as to why this is the case, I think it's pretty obvious that in the United States, if you start messing around with people's homes and sneaking in, there's a very good chance you're going to get shot, or bad things are going to happen to you, because unlike in the United Kingdom, where you can basically assume no one's got guns, here in the United States, the assumption is that by and large, most people have guns in the home, and they'd be more than willing to shoot you with it if you sneak into their home to commit a burglary. So that is a major reason why, and people generally agree with this, a major reason why hot burglary rates are much, much higher, dramatically higher, in fact, in the United Kingdom than they are here in the United States. And again, hot burglaries are the dangerous kinds of burglaries. There are no good burglaries, of course, but the dangerous burglaries are the hot ones, and those are dramatically heightened in the UK versus here in the United States. Now, with that said, there's a very famous story that really is a teaching point for British people, but also for us here too, the story of Tony Martin. Over a decade ago, Tony Martin was an individual. I'll put some links to the story down below. It's a tragic story. He was a farmer. He lived at home with 3 dogs, and basically he continued to get burglarized and was a victim of crime over and over and over again, because he kind of lived relatively in a very rural area, and there was no law enforcement, nobody out there to protect him. So he kept getting victimized. So one night, 2 young thugs, really, 2 young guys with long rap sheets. There's no debate about that. These people were basically career criminals. That's how they're characterized. You can take a look at the information about these characters below, and you tell me what you think. But these guys broke into his home in the middle of the night, and guess what? Tony Martin used a shotgun and shot them. One was significantly injured, but he lived. The other was killed. So what did the United Kingdom's authorities do? What did the UK police do? Well, of course we know what they did, because they're nutty anti-gunners going all the way back to our founding generation, which is why we had to kick their butt out of the country. They arrested Tony Martin, the homeowner who had been repeatedly victimized, and they did so on various grounds. They said, oh, it wasn't self-defense, he had an illegal gun, wasn't supposed to have a basic shotgun, on so on and so on. So basically they got him convicted, and he was initially sentenced to 10 years in prison. Now, without getting into the machinations of this, eventually his sentence was reduced down to something like 3 to 5 years. I think he served about 3 years. The lawyers worked really hard on this. And one of the things that was really shocking is when he was in prison for the murder of this no good ne'er-do-well who had broken into his home, they refused to give him parole. And one of the reasons why is the parole chief said that they did not think Tony Martin had learned his lesson, which presumably that lesson is guns are bad. Don't use guns to protect yourself against scumbag criminals. And right, don't use guns against scumbag criminals. That's the lesson. And if you didn't learn it, we're going to keep you in prison. So whatever you think about the Tony Martin story, and there were conflicting views over there in the United Kingdom, most people were very sympathetic of him because the people he shot were, best we could tell from the record, ne'er-do-well criminals, and people really sympathized with him being a victim of these crimes over and over and over again. And yeah, he took it into his own hands, but he said he did it in self-defense. Nevertheless, this is a cost level. A lot of people flag this as a big issue. The reality is this, that punishing him and putting him in prison in the UK was really a message sent to the criminal classes of the United Kingdom that don't worry, we got your back. If you burgle someone's home, no big deal. They're not going to be able to shoot you. Worst case scenario, you get arrested. Maybe we do catch and release, or maybe you can run away, but you're not going to die. Well, in the United States, if you burgle and do a hot burglary, you know, you may get shot, paralyzed, all sorts of terrible things can happen to you, and you're going to be found dead or shot in somebody's home, and that's not going to be a good look. It's going to look a lot like self-defense, and unlike in the United Kingdom, which generally doesn't like guns and generally doesn't like armed self-defense, we in the United States are not just a gun culture, we're a particular type of gun culture, which is a privately armed, self-defense oriented gun culture. So that is why if you look at the hot rate burglary numbers in the United Kingdom versus the US, you see people don't like to break into homes where there's other people there. It's a pretty dangerous thing. In contrast, if you play that game over the United Kingdom and something bad happens to you, odds are you won't go to jail, and odds are the guy who actually defends his home may very well wind up going to prison like Tony Martin did many years ago. And I'll put links to the story down below. If you're not familiar with it, you should definitely check it out. It's an important story for you to know in the context of protecting our right to keep and bear arms here in the United States. So there you have it, folks. Hope you learned something here today. Make sure you follow me on X at 4 Boxes Diner, and we'll see you again soon here at the 4 Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.